As we had completed the previous part, I have mentioned to you that the time schedule is important and the feature of the project management, and the activity which we had during the class itself, it's also the type of the scheduling, the type of the getting the time proper. So the same in the project management activity. We have to completely understand the vision of the time itself and the way how we can use it properly. So that is why the usage of the time and the time scheduling is the important part of the project management activity. We are starting this topic, and we will come hopefully to the result of the vision which you will have on the type of the philosophical and constructive vision of the type of the time which you will use during this project building. Definitely the understanding of the time have been crucially changed and crucially differ depending on different circumstances. Actually, the time which we are following, it's the physical time. And also, if you will find yourself in the term of the psychology, you will also feel that the time differ from the situation in which, and from the circumstances in which you are getting in. And definitely at the team building, which we have discussed previously in the previous class, you also have mentioned that the time is supposed to be in order. One of the meaning of the leader is to make the order and also the time order. So how can we use the time in the frequency of the changes which we will face on during the project building, and also the frequency of the visions which we have in the changing of the social circumstances? Project schedules grow out of the basic document that initiate the project which you have been constructed, and in each of these document base you will find the structure of the starting point and the structures of the sub-projects which help to originate and make the circumstances clear for you. So the project charter, for example, includes start and end dates, budget information, from which we can find the financial base of the project activity. Definitely at the project charter we also have including the starting and the end dates, not just for budget itself, but also for the overview of the project and for overview of those stakeholders with whom we are working with. Scope statement and work breakdown structure help define what will be done with help of the time schedule, and the time increasing and the time spending will also make the work breakdown structure more clear and informational for those who are using this documentation, for those who are using the project for its realization. Definitely, while you are implementing the project, the scope statement which you have been mentioned, which you have been implemented at the documentary base, will a little bit shift, and this shifting will also face you with the problems, with the tensions which we have inside the team building and also inside the social environment with which we have been worked on. You remember the previous class task were to make the SWOT analysis, and the SWOT analysis also, I guess, during this preparation of this task and also during the discussion, I have seen the problem of the time scheduling and the problem of the time following. So here the scope statement will also be shiftable according to the situation, according to the structure of the social building. Activity definition involves developing a more detailed work breakdown structure and supporting explanations to understand all the work to be done, so you can develop realistic duration estimates to make the project more proper and more definite for your project team members and also for the social environment. Actually, activity definition relates with different bases, relates with the different sources which we can use during the project implementation. One of the main sources, as we have been mentioned to you, that's the usage of information and spreading of the information for the courses of the project, with the main goal to implement our product, to implement our social motivation, to the publicity, to the role of the social environment. For sure, the activity definition relates with the time directly, because the activity itself, it's the combination of the time, space, and changes, and the changes which we are getting, shifting which we are getting, it's the vision of the activity. Activity sequencing involves reviewing activities and determining dependencies. First of all, these dependencies relates with the correlation between different parts of the project. We can use following identification. First of all, mandatory dependencies, inherent in the nature of the work. It has a hard logic inside of that, because mandatory could not be changed, and it's quite difficult to make shifting of the mandatory dependencies. Definitely, the world which we are facing with, that's not so appropriate, not so mandatory as in physics, as the science, for example, or in your natural sciences like anatomy. But definitely the mandatory dependence relates with the formation of the changes which can happen. So that's why the hard logic between the involvement at the project environment also make the mandatory dependencies important. So that's why the dependencies between the time and involving with the project activity, involvement with the project changes, also relates it directly. Discretionary dependencies defined by the project team, it has the soft logic inside this, and according to the time management system, the discretionary dependencies can also make the shifting more precisely, more directly to the product itself, to the real service which we can provide during the project activity. Discretionary dependencies also, as you can see, defined by the project team, and it can be correlated with the forms of the activity and with the directions of the activity which the project team are actually implementing. And also, in the activity we can have external dependencies. Such a problem of activity sequencing in external dependencies involve relationship between the project and between project activities. So this means the surrounding environment, surrounding social environment, which we have been mentioned at our SWOT analysis to the opportunities and threats. It's more flexible than the discretionary dependencies because it also have to be responded to. That's why external dependencies are more related with the using of the time, not so strictly, and as in mandatory dependencies. It's supposed to be related with the certain situation, and that's why the certain situation which will be implemented in the activity during the project management supposed to be also correlated with the certain external factors. Such external factors, as I have mentioned to you, as we have discussed during the practical classes, on which we could not, let's say, directly influenced, but then we're supposed to respond to such an influence of these external dependencies, and that's why using the time more properly and adding additional and making additional time scheduling for the documents which have been created beforehand. The project team must determine dependencies which we have been mentioned to use critical path analysis to find the more precise critical path in the understanding on the time scheduling and understanding of the activity scheduling. The project network diagrams are the preferred technique for showing activity sequencing, and let's have these project network diagrams more precisely understand. It's a schematic display of the logical relationship among or sequencing of project activities. As we have been constructed, you remember the SWOT analysis, I have mentioned to you that you can use the letter and the number mentioning. So here at the project network diagram also this method of the logical disposal of relationship, logical disposal of different activity inside the project supposed to be done, and it's correlated with the main idea of the project management itself, and including the time management. So the logical relationships among the forms of the activity which you have been presented at the project network diagram also have certain sequencing of project activities and correlation between them. So that's why it's the most easiest and more correlated with the plan itself and creating of the plan and then following it during the project implementation. Also, the technology which you can use, and it's important technology for understanding the project network diagrams, it's activity on arrow. Activity on arrow. That means it's saying by itself. You are making the arrow as the main element, as the key element of the project network diagrams. What does it show? What can it help for us, activity on arrow diagrams? First of all, activities are represented by arrows. It's getting from the idea, it's getting from the title itself. Why it's important? Because it's showing actually for you the motion. You remember time, space and motion. The space for you will be social environment. The time which we can use for the changing of the social environment is supposed to be mentioned. And here the activities, this means the motion of the project, the motion of your project team and the social environment itself changing, shifting, can be represented by the arrows on the activity on arrow diagram. Nodes or cycles are the starting and ending points of activities which can be used during the activity on arrow disposal and the usage of this during the project network diagrams creation. Why it's important to have the nodes or cycles? Because there you can actually mention what I have stated to you, the number and the letter, mentioning the number and letter statement of the activity which is supposed to be done during the project implementation. Activity on arrow also can only show finish to start dependencies, and that's the most easiest way to understand the activity on arrow, because here the showing of the finish to start, it's also getting description of the path itself, because the finish and start, finish to start point, that's actually correlation between the previous stage of the project, previous technology, previous ideas and the following ideas. Let's make the activity on arrow diagram more precise to you, more clear for you. Let's find all the activities that start at node 1 which you can make. For example, the starting point of the project communication inside the team. the team building. Draw then the finish nodes and draw arrows between node 1 and the finish nodes. It will show to you, node 1 will show to you the starting point on which your team have not been formulated yet. And the finish node will show to you the position, the motion to actually the certain situation on which your team will be created. So that's why the activity on arrow diagram here at this first part, at the first starting node 1, you will see the way, how the time on which this path is supposed to be done, the time on which you will spend for the formation of the team itself. Put the activity letter or name, as I have mentioned to you, and duration estimated on the associated arrow. And that's why you can use this activity on arrow part with the help of the letter and numbers to then use at another scheduling and another activity diagrams which you can make description of your project activity. Second step is continuing drawing the network diagram with the help of the activity on arrow technique. Working from the left to right, you are showing that it has certain progressive way, it has certain progressive description of the project itself. Look for bursts and merges which are appearing. Bursts occur when a single node is followed by 2 or more activities, and here it definitely shown to you that after you have completed the team idea, the team management having completed, you can also start for example, making the joint project, start making the joint documentation which will be offered to the stakeholders, for example. A merge in the sense of the activity on arrow diagrams technique occurs when 2 or more nodes precede a single node. So that's why from the starting point of one node you will get to the 2 or more different nodes as the finish line. Here the example of the time management showing to you that while you have offered the certain leader inside your team to make the public relations communication, it will get to different stakeholders. So that's why you are getting the starting point when your leader of the public relations inside your team will find this link between the stakeholders and your team, and it showed to you that the merge will occur because different stakeholders supposed to be found and communicated with. So that's why this time show to you, the activity have been shown to you. Bursts and merge will occur while you are making the continuing drawing. And also continue drawing the project network diagram with the help of the activity on arrow. You will make the general vision of the project until all activities have been included to the picture, have been included on the diagram, and you will see that dependencies line, you will see this interconnection between different activity, between the different scheduling of the time. Also, as the rule of thumb, all arrowheads should face towards the right, as I mentioned to you, and no arrows should cross on an arrow activity on arrow diagram, network diagram. For sure, why it shouldn't also cross, that's because the activity which have been shown to you, it has certain perspective, it has certain perspective only on the dependencies from the start to the finish activity. It has no correlation between different parts. Let's see what other techniques can be used during the time management of your project. The second is precedence diagramming method. VDM is a visual representation technique that depicts the activities involved in the project. It's a method of constructing a project schedule network diagram that uses boxes, nodes to represent activities, and connects them with arrows that show the interdependencies between such an activity. So what is important here in comparison with activity on arrow diagram, that's this dependency shown, that this dependency shown can be mentioned and can be used during the project preparation and during the analysis of the activity itself. Also, the precedence diagramming method can be used at the formation of the general picture of the project, which can be shown during the presentation of the project, during the status of the public relations, which can be used and which your team leaders can use at the preparation of different events, social important events, to make the services which you are providing more applicable. Also, the precedence diagramming method allows to visualize management activities which are represented by boxes. Arrows show relationships between activities, which we can use during the precedence diagramming method. You remember this activity on arrow diagrams. I ask you, and there is the request from the technique actually, to use number and letter at the mentioning of the arrows. Here also these arrows can be shown as the relationship between these boxes, just with the mentioning of this letter and number. Because later on, yes, if you will compare precedence diagram method with your activity on arrow diagram, you will see these interdependencies. Also, it's better, the precedence diagram method better at showing different types of dependencies, especially while we are using the time management, because all the arrows which have been mentioned on the activity on arrow method have interconnection, and these dependencies, it depends on the way how you will see this. It will definitely show to you the clear relationship between them. And such interconnections, such dependencies will also show you the philosophy of your project and the types of the activity which you can use. Schedule development uses results of the other time management process to determine the start and the end, date of the project and its activities. The ultimate goal of time management is to create a realistic project schedule that provides a basis for monitoring project progress and for the time dimension of the project itself. It's important to use the method of the time management, the techniques of time management, just also because it will help you to coordinate different parts of your project, different leaders inside your project team, different responsible persons and the stakeholders inside the project activity. Important tools and techniques, which includes the Gantt charts or program evaluation and review technique, PERT analysis, critical path analysis, which I have mentioned here, and critical change scheduling, which can help you to understand the time management which can be used. For example, Gantt chart provides a standard format for displaying project schedule information by listing project activities and their corresponding start and finish dates in a calendar format, which can be also done in different forms, in different types of the electronic and also printed version, because the Gantt charts can be done through the whole stages of the project, and the time management leader, the person who will properly use the time control, so can use the Gantt charts for the actually the standardization of the activity and correlation between the different parts of the project vision. Definitely, Gantt charts also created with the help of the milestones. The important usage of the milestones, because you can understand this idea from the vision of the history. And milestones are significant events on a project that normally have zero duration. Project team can follow the SMART criteria in developing milestones and making them important for understanding of inside the Gantt charts. The critical path method is a project network analysis technique used to predict total project duration, to make the general scheduling of the time which is supposed to be used during the project activity. A critical path for a project is the series of activities that determines the earliest time by which the project can be completed. In the case of the social projects which you can implement during our course, during our disciplines in the 2 upcoming quarters of the education, you will see that this critical path will be a little bit shifted. So this means it's not so strict, it's not so mandatory for the understanding of the earliest time of the completing of the project. But you're supposed to make the discussion, you're supposed to come back to the categories, come back to the criteria and critiques of the dependencies which have been mentioned by your group members. Let's make the conclusion of the time management which you can use during the preparation of the project. First of all, the time management goal is to understand all the work to be done and develop realistic duration estimates which can be used during the project implementation. For here, the important word is dependencies. It's developing dependencies of the activity and time. The project team must determine dependencies in order to use critical path and analysis, because as I have mentioned to you, the critical path will also help you to see the overcoming dates of the completing of the projects. Also, such a technique as the Gantt charts provides a standard format for displaying project schedule information with the help of the calendar. It's most easiest way right now because we all using calendar when we can see the project duration with the help of the Gantt chart itself. So that is why during the practical classes we will use different techniques, and especially while we will talk about the Gantt charts using, you will see how it's important to make it clear the time management duration of the project. Thank you, and see you at the practical classes on the time management.